My brother posted it in the family group chat for everyone to see. "Don't come to my engagement party. You'll embarrass me in front of her entire family." Mom reacted with 4 red heart emojis. Dad dropped a laughing face. I was in the middle of a 6-hour white ink session, the needle buzzing steadily against skin, when the message lit up my second phone. I glanced at it once, typed 2 words, "Got it," and hit send. Then I flipped the phone over and kept working. I'm Ryland Gates. I'm 32 years old. I'm a henna and white ink artist that half the Vegas strip books solid months in advance. My designs end up on dancers, brides, and people you've definitely seen on billboards. But to my own family, I've always been the dirty secret. The one they pray doesn't show up in photos. I thought that message closed the door for good. I was dead wrong. Because the very next morning, my entire family stormed into my studio while I had a celebrity dancer in my chair. And my brother's fiancée looked straight at me and said something that turned the entire room upside down. If you've ever been told you're not wanted at your own brother's biggest night, you need to hear what happened next. Drop your story in the comments. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because this one goes from 0 to chaos fast. Let's dive in. The studio doorbell went off like a fire alarm at 9 sharp Saturday morning. Someone was leaning on it, hard, refusing to let go. I was 4 hours into a full-back white ink piece on one of the lead dancers from the new residency at Resorts World. She was face down, breathing slow and steady, arms tucked beneath her chest, while I laid the cleanest, finest lines I'd pulled all week. The moment the door slammed open, every head in the studio snapped around. My mom charged in first, cheeks already flushed. Dad followed, shoulders squared like he was walking into a business meeting he didn't want to attend. Then came Cohen, perfect hair, white linen shirt, influencer brunch energy radiating off him. And behind them, a woman I'd never seen before. Designer sunglasses pushed up into her hair. Impeccable posture. Sharp eyes scanning the neon signs and flash walls like she was cataloging everything. My mom didn't wait for the door to close. "Your grandfather just called the house in a panic," she barked, loud enough that the dancer flinched under my needle. "He saw the family group chat and demanded to know why his granddaughter isn't invited to Cohen's engagement party. Do you have any idea how embarrassing that phone call was?" 2 clients sitting on the velvet couch reached for their phones at the exact same time. The dancer lifted her head an inch. "Everything okay, Ryland?" I didn't stop the machine. I wiped, dipped more ink, and leaned in calmly. "Keep breathing for me, babe," I said softly. Dad stepped up beside Mom, arms crossed tight. "One message," he snapped, "and you had to drag the whole family into it. You couldn't just let it go." Cohen scanned the room like he'd walked into the wrong building. His lips pressed into a thin, irritated line. Then the woman beside him stopped cold. She stared at the intro card mounted near my station. My name, my logo, my client list. Her eyes flicked from the wall to the dancer in my chair, to my hands, and her expression changed completely. That's when I knew something was about to break. The studio doorbell didn't chime. Screamed. Someone leaned on it like they were trying to force their way in, the sound sharp enough to cut through the low music and the steady buzz of my machine. Every person inside my studio looked up at the same time. I didn't. I was 4 hours into a full-back white ink piece on one of the lead dancers from the new Resorts World residency. Her breathing was slow, controlled. Arms folded beneath her chest. Skin warm under my gloves as I pulled another clean line and wiped it gently. The door flew open. My mom came in first, already flushed, already angry. Dad followed right behind her, jaw tight, eyes hard. My brother, Cohen, walked in like he owned the place. White linen shirt, perfectly styled hair, the kind of confidence that only comes from never being told no. And then there was her. Polish. Designer sunglasses pushed up into her hair. She paused just inside the doorway, eyes moving slowly across the neon signs, the flash walls, the artwork framed floor to ceiling. My mom didn't wait for an invitation. "Your grandfather just called us in a panic," she said loud. Too loud. He saw the group chat and demanded to know why you're not invited to Cohen's engagement party. Do you have any idea how humiliating that phone call was? The dancer under my hands flinched. Kept working. 2 clients sitting on the velvet couch by the wall reached for their phones at the exact same time. Screens tilted up. Recording. The dancer lifted her head slightly. Everything okay, Ryland? I didn't look up. I wiped, dipped fresh ink and leaned in again. Keep breathing for me, I said quietly. You're doing great. Dad stepped closer, arms folding tight across his chest. You always do this, he said. You take one thing and turn it into drama. One message, Ryland. And suddenly the whole family's involved. Cohen finally spoke, his voice sharp, embarrassed. This isn't the place for this. You're making a scene. I glanced at him for the first time then. Neutral. You came into my studio, I said. During a session. That didn't slow them down. Mom waved a hand around the room like she was swatting flies. Look at this place. Of course you wouldn't understand how this looks to normal people. Twos. Half-naked women. Cameras everywhere. Her voice rose with every word. That's when I realized. One of the clients muttered softly, not even trying to hide their phone anymore. The woman behind Cohen, the fiancé, hadn't said a word. She'd stepped closer to my station without realizing it. Her eyes moved from my hands to the dancer's back, tracing the white ink as it caught the light. Her expression shifted. Confusion first, then focus. Then recognition. She leaned forward slightly, squinting at the intro card mounted beside my chair. Name. My logo. A short list of recent clients. She went very still. Wait, she said quietly. The room didn't hear her at first. I've seen this work, she said again, louder now. This is. Cohen turned sharply. No, it's not. She ignored him. Her eyes locked on me. You're Ryland Gates. No question. A statement. The studio went silent. Even the machine seemed louder suddenly. That's when Cohen's face drained of color. And that's when I knew. This was no longer their stage. The silence didn't break right away. Stretched. Phones stayed lifted. No one spoke. Even the dancer under my hands froze, muscles tense, waiting for me to say something. I didn't. The woman, Cohen's fiancée, took another step forward, her heels clicking softly against the concrete floor. She wasn't looking at my family anymore. She was looking at the work. This line work, she said almost to herself. The negative space. The layering in white ink. She turned to Cohen. You said your sister didn't have a real job. Cohen laughed too fast. She doesn't. I mean, this is just a hobby thing. She exaggerates. I finally turned my machine off. The sudden quiet felt heavier than the noise ever had. I've been trying to book her for 6 months, the fiancé said. Every head snapped toward her. What? Mom said. The fiancé pulled her phone from her clutch and scrolled. Precise. My stylist follows her. Half my dancers follow her. She's booked out until October. I thought it was a different Ryland Gates. She looked at me again, this time smiling. You did that piece on Lila Martinez before her Vegas debut, didn't you? I nodded once. 2 sessions. The dancer on my table lifted her head higher now. She flew me in, she said. And paid double to keep my name off the booking list. Mom's mouth opened. Closed. Dad shifted his weight. That doesn't mean. And the bridal editorial last spring, the fiancé continued. The one Vogue almost pulled because the ink had to photograph perfectly under harsh lighting. She laughed softly. That was you. Cohen stepped between us. Okay. This is getting weird. No, she said sharply now. What's weird is you telling me your sister is an embarrassment. The phones came up higher. One of my regulars whispered. Oh damn, like they just smelled blood in the water. Mom tried to recover. Artists exaggerate their importance. It's not like this brings in real money. The fiancé turned slowly. Her minimum session rate is $8,000. The room made a sound. Not words. Just breath. And for full back pieces like this? She gestured to the dancer. 12 to 15. More if it's private. Cohen's face had gone stiff. Too still. That's not relevant, he snapped. I cleaned my hands calmly, peeled off my gloves, and finally stood. You came here because Grandpa saw the group chat. Not because you cared how it landed. Dad frowned. We just want peace. You want control, I said. Still calm. Still quiet. The fiancé looked between us, confusion hardening into something colder. You've been paying for things, haven't you? Mumbling. Excuse me. For years, she said, eyes never leaving me. You don't cut family off unless they keep reaching into you. Cohen's voice cracked. Stop analyzing this. I picked up my tablet and tapped the screen once. Payment history. Clean. Organized. I cover Mom's car payment, I said. $800 a month. Mom inhaled sharply. That's private. I paid Dad's credit card balance last January, I continued. $14,312. Dad's face went pale. And Cohen, I said, turning to him. Your brand launch last summer. $27,000. You said it was an investment. The fiancé stared at him now. You told me your parents helped. He didn't answer. She exhaled slowly. So this is why. Mom's voice turned sweet. Dangerous. Family helps family. That's what you call it, I said. I call it a tab. The room felt smaller. Tighter. Mom crossed her arms. Well, since we're being honest, she said. We need help again. There it was. The fiancé's eyes flicked back to me. And that, I said quietly, is where this changes. The silence came back. But this time it wasn't confusion. It was anticipation. Mom didn't even pretend to ease into it. She stepped closer, lowering her voice the way she always did when she wanted something and didn't want witnesses to call it what it was. We need 40,000, she said. No hesitation. No shame. Just a number. Cohen let out a breath like this was obvious. It's not a big deal. You're already doing well. I didn't answer right away. I picked up a fresh wipe, cleaned the edge of my station, and capped the ink bottle. Low. Deliberate. For what? Asked. Cohen glanced at his fiancée, then back at me. The venue deposit doubled. And branding costs went up. You know how this stuff works. I nodded once. Exact number. Mom sighed, already irritated. 38,600. We rounded. The fiancé's eyes flicked between us. She hadn't stepped in yet. She was listening. You've always paid before, Dad added quietly, like that made it reasonable. We didn't think this would be different. That landed heavier than the number. I looked at Cohen. You told her this was my responsibility. He shrugged. You don't have kids. You don't have real expenses. The dancer on the table went very still again. Mom jumped in fast. This is about family image. Cohen's brand matters. His marriage matters. You don't want to ruin that, do you? I tilted my head slightly. So let me understand. You uninvited me so I wouldn't embarrass you. And now you want me to fund the party I'm not allowed to attend. Cohen scoffed. You're making it dramatic. The fiancé finally spoke. Did you plan to tell me any of this? Mom smiled too quickly. This is internal family stuff. No, she said. This is financial dependency. Cohen snapped. Stay out of it. He didn't. How much total has she given you? She asked. Dad cleared his throat. That's not. Answer, she said. I saved him the discomfort. 212,000, I said calmly. Over 6 years. Gasped. You're exaggerating. I have the transfers, I replied. Every date. Every amount. Cohen's jaw clenched. You act like we stole it. You asked, I said. Repeatedly. With deadlines. Mom's voice hardened. We raised you. And I paid you back, I said. Many times over. The room felt like it had shifted on its axis. People weren't pretending not to listen anymore. No one checked their phones. No one spoke. Cohen stepped closer, dropping his voice. If you don't help, this will get ugly. I met his eyes. Is that a threat? He smiled. Nervous. Call it a consequence. The fiancé took a step back from him. Mom folded her arms. You owe us. Don't forget where you came from. I exhaled slowly. No, I said. I don't. Dad shook his head. You're really going to do this? Over money? I looked at all three of them. Teddy. This isn't about money, I said. It's about access. Cohen's voice rose. So what, you're just cutting us off now? Yes, I said. One word. Clean. The silence hit like a dropped glass. Mom laughed, sharp and disbelieving. You don't mean that. I do. Cohen's face flushed. You'll regret this. Maybe, I said. But not tonight. They stood there stunned. Not angry yet. Not loud yet. Just exposed. They left without another word. The door closed behind them with a soft chime. And that's when my phone started vibrating. They didn't yell right away. That was the part that surprised me. Mom just stared at me, lips parted slightly, like she was waiting for me to laugh and say I was joking. Like this was all some dramatic pause before I folded the way I always had. Dad rubbed his forehead. Low. Tired. You're serious? Yes, I said. Cohen let out a short, humorless laugh. You can't be serious. I stayed quiet. Not defensive. Not emotional. Just still. Mom's voice sharpened. After everything we've done for you. I tilted my head. List it. She blinked. What? List what you've done, I said calmly. Be specific. Dad stepped in quickly. This isn't a courtroom. No, I agreed. But it feels like one. Cohen scoffed. You're acting like we're villains. I didn't say that, I replied. I said no. Mom's tone dropped into that familiar warning register. If you don't help your brother right now, you're choosing sides. I nodded once. I know. Her eyes widened. And you're fine with that? Yes. That was when her face changed. Not anger. Not yet. Fear. Cohen took a step closer, lowering his voice like he was trying to reason with a child. Think this through. Sponsors expect a certain image. If this party falls apart, people will talk. I'm sure they will, I said. Dad exhaled sharply. You're burning bridges. No, I said. I'm closing a door. Mom laughed again, louder this time. You always get dramatic when you're stressed. I didn't react. You know, she continued. We never asked for repayment before. That's not true, I said. You just never called it repayment. Cohen's jaw tightened. You're acting like this is exploitation. It is, I replied evenly. The fiancée shifted her weight, arms folded now. Touching. Measuring. Dad's voice dropped. If you walk away from this, don't expect us to cover for you anymore. I met his eyes. Cover for what? Silence. Cohen stepped back, shaking his head. You think you're better than us now? No, I said. I think I'm done. Mom's patience snapped. You wouldn't even be here without this family. I smiled just slightly. I built everything I have without your help. That's not true, she shot back. We supported you. You tolerated me, I corrected. When it was convenient. The room felt tight. Heavy. Like the air had thickened. Cohen straightened his shoulders. If you don't give us the money, don't bother showing your face again. I didn't hesitate. I wasn't invited. That landed hard. Mom looked like she might cry. Or scream. Or both. You'll regret this, she said quietly. People don't forget betrayal. He nodded. Neither do I. Dad stared at the floor. Cohen looked anywhere but at me. Finally, Mom grabbed her purse. We're leaving. No apology. No reflection. Just exit. They walked out the same way they came in. Loud footsteps. Sharp breath. The door chimed softly as it closed behind them. For a few seconds no one spoke. Then the dancer lifted her head and said gently, "You okay?" I met her eyes and smiled. "Yeah." And I meant it. That night, instead of spiraling or second-guessing myself, I sent out 3 texts. No explanations, no drama, just invitations. I didn't cry after they left. I didn't pace the studio or replay the conversation in my head. I didn't even sit down. I wiped my station, changed my gloves, and finished the piece. The dancer smiled when she saw it in the mirror. "This is insane," she said softly. "You're unreal." "Thank you," I replied. And for the first time that day, my chest felt light. By the time the studio closed, the sun was already dipping behind the buildings. Vegas does this thing at dusk. Everything turns gold for about 10 minutes, like the city's pretending it's gentle. I locked the door and checked my phone. 3 replies. "My way. I'll bring wine. Send the address." That was it. No questions. No guilt. No explanations required. I stopped by the corner store for ice, then headed home. My place isn't flashy. Clean lines, good light, walls covered in framed sketches and healed photos from past clients. Every piece tells a story. Every story chose me. By 7 the first knock came. Then another. Then laughter in the hallway. People I'd met through work. Artists. Dancers. A photographer who once paid me in cash and concert tickets. A couple who met in my chair and never stopped holding hands. Someone turned on music. Someone else lit candles. Shoes piled up by the door. No one asked why the party existed. They just showed up. Poured drinks. Hands clinked glasses. Someone toasted to good work and better people. And everyone cheered like it made perfect sense. At one point, a girl I'd tattooed last year leaned in and said, "You know, every time I see your stuff on stage I tell people, that's Ryland's." Like I'm bragging. I laughed. "You are bragging." She smiled. "Yeah." Proudly. Around 10 the room was warm. Full. Easy. No one talked over me. No one mocked my job. No one asked for anything. I caught myself standing in the kitchen, watching everyone talk, and realizing something quietly devastating. This was what support felt like. Not loud praise. Not obligation. Just presence. I stepped onto the balcony for air. City lights blinking below. My phone buzzed in my hand. A message from an unknown number. "We need to talk." I didn't reply. Another buzz. This time a missed call. Then another. I turned the phone face down and went back inside. Someone handed me a fresh drink. Someone else pulled me into a group photo. Arms around shoulders. Smiles that reached eyes. For a moment, I let myself believe the night was over. Then the doorbell rang. Once. Harder the 3rd time. The music dipped. Conversations stalled. I didn't move right away. The bell rang again. Longer this time, like someone leaning on it. A couple of heads turned toward me. "You expecting someone else?" a friend asked. I shook my head slowly. The bell rang again. I walked to the door, every step calm, steady, deliberate. Put my hand on the handle. And through the frosted glass, I saw familiar silhouettes. One tall. One rigid. One pacing. My chest didn't tighten. Smiled. Because somehow I already knew. They hadn't come to celebrate. They'd come because something was falling apart. I didn't open the door right away. I stood there for a beat, listening. Muffled voices. One sharp. One tight with panic. One lower, trying and failing to stay calm. Another knock. Harder. "Ryland," my brother called through the door. "Open up. We need to talk. Now." Behind me the room stayed quiet. Not awkward. Alert. I turned the handle and pulled the door open. Cohen stepped in first, jaw clenched. Eyes already scanning the room like he was counting witnesses. My parents followed, stiff and furious, like they'd rehearsed this walk the whole way over. And then, 2 seconds later, another figure appeared in the doorway. His fiancée. Lone. She didn't look angry. She looked done. The room shifted instantly. People noticed. Conversations stopped. Someone muted the music without being asked. Cohen spun toward her. Why are you here? He hissed. She didn't answer him. Her eyes were locked on me. Hi, she said quietly. Hi, I replied. That was all it took. She stepped fully into the room and turned finally to face him. You told me you were handling this, she said. Her voice was calm, but it didn't shake. You said your sister was being dramatic. Mom jumped in. This isn't the time. Yes, it is, the fiancé said, cutting her off without raising her voice. Because I just left my parents' house. And they're asking why the engagement is suddenly missing deposits. Silence hit the room like a dropped plate. Cohen's color drained fast. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the venue, she said. And the caterer. And the planner. All of whom say payments were made. And then reversed. Dad shifted his weight. That's a private family matter. She turned to him slowly. It stopped being private when my name was on the contracts. Phones came out. No one said anything. They didn't have to. Cohen laughed once. Too loud. Too quick. This is getting blown out of proportion. I took a step forward. Then let's keep it simple, I said evenly. You asked me for money. Said no. Everything that happens after that isn't on me. His head snapped toward me. You don't get to talk right now. She looked at him. Why not? Because the truth was already lining up behind her eyes. He opened his mouth, closed it, ran a hand through his hair. Mom turned on me. You're enjoying this. I shook my head. I'm hosting a party. That's when she noticed it. The binder. Sitting on the kitchen counter. Labeled. Tabs visible from 10 feet away. Her gaze locked onto it. What's that? She asked. Cohen stepped in front of it instinctively. Too late. Picked it up. Receipts, I said simply. The room didn't breathe. I opened it to the first page and turned it toward her. Mounts. Vendor names. Highlighted reversals. Side-by-side screenshots. She stepped closer. Read silently. Her face didn't crumble. It hardened. These are from the last 6 months, she said. Yes, I replied. And the total, she asked. Just over 98,000, I said. Not counting fees. Cohen exploded. You went through my stuff. She flinched, not at his volume but at his desperation. I didn't have to, I said calmly. You emailed half of it to me. She closed the binder. Looked at him. Looked at my parents. Then back at him. I need my ring, she said. What? He snapped. Now. Gasped. Don't be rash. She slid the ring off her finger and placed it gently on the counter. I won't marry someone who lies this easily, she said. Or steals. No one stopped her when she walked out. The door closed softly behind her. Cohen stood there shaking. And that's when I set the binder down. By the way, I said evenly, I made copies. No one moved. Not my parents. Not Cohen. Not the people lining the kitchen island pretending not to stare while recording anyway. I opened the binder again. Slowly. Not for drama. For clarity. I didn't plan to do this publicly, I said, my voice steady. But since we're all here, and since my name keeps getting dragged into things, I want the record straight. I flipped to the first tab. January 12th, I read. Deposit for the Lakeview Terrace venue. $32,000. Paid from a joint account. Reversed 3 days later. I turned the page. February 3rd. Caterer. $18,000. Same account. Same reversal. Murmurs rippled through the room. Someone sucked in a sharp breath. Phone camera tilted closer. Cohen shook his head. This is insane. I didn't look at him. March 9th, I continued. Planner retainer. 10,000. Marked final. Never received. I paused and looked up. That one was interesting, I said. Because the planner emailed you. Me. Asking why the payment bounced. Mom stepped forward. You're twisting things. I met her eyes. I'm reading emails. Dad finally spoke. Quiet. Why would you keep all this? I closed the binder halfway. Because every time I said no, I was told I'd always helped before. Because every time something went missing, my name came up next. Silence settled heavier this time. Open the next tab. Personal transfers, I said. Small ones at first. 2,000, 5,000. Always marked as temporary. I turned another page. Then larger. 15,000, 25. Labeled as brand expenses. Cohen snapped. That's business. I looked at him. Then why did they go to your personal account? That did it. Few people stepped back. One woman covered her mouth. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." I slid a printed spreadsheet across the counter. Totals, I said. $98,412. Over 6 months. Not including penalties. Mom's voice trembled. You could have handled this privately. He nodded. I tried. Cohen lunged forward. Dad caught his arm. Let go of me, Cohen snapped. No, Dad said. And for the first time in my life it sounded final. I turned one last page. This is the email you sent your fiancée, I said. Telling her I was handling the finances and that delays were normal. I let that hang. Then I closed the binder. I never handled your finances, I said calmly. I covered gaps when vendors were screaming. I protected your image when things didn't add up. And I stopped when you treated that like an obligation. No one argued that. Phones were out now. Not hiding. Not subtle. Mom's shoulders slumped. Dad stared at the floor. Cohen looked around, desperate. You're all blowing this up. She's always been dramatic. A voice from the couch cut in. She just showed receipts. Another voice. With dates. Another. And emails. I stepped back from the counter. I'm done explaining, I said. I'm done fixing. And I'm done being the quiet solution to loud problems. I walked toward the door. Behind me, chaos finally broke loose. Raised voices. Accusations. Someone crying. Someone swearing. I didn't turn around. By the time I reached my car, my phone was already buzzing. Notifications. Messages. By morning, the internet had finished what I started. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was upset. Because my phone wouldn't stop vibrating. By the time the sun came up, the story had already escaped the room. Screenshots were everywhere. Clips from 3 different angles. Someone had stitched the receipts together with captions and timestamps, neat and ruthless. I hadn't posted a thing. I didn't need to. Cohen's sponsors noticed first. One brand quietly removed his photo from their homepage before breakfast. Another disabled comments. By noon, a third released a short statement about re-evaluating partnerships pending clarification. Clarification never came. Instead, more details surfaced. People who had worked with him started talking. A photographer commented that he'd been paid late. A stylist posted a blurry invoice with the caption, "So it wasn't just me." The word pattern started showing up. Mom called me at 9:14 a.m. I watched it ring until it stopped. She texted instead. "This has gone too far. You're humiliating the family." I didn't reply. Dad called next. Then texted. "People are asking questions. We didn't raise you to do this." That one almost made me laugh. By midday, Cohen's engagement announcement was gone. The pinned post vanished. The comments were locked. Then deleted. His fiancée, ex-fiancée I guessed, removed his last name from her bio and unfollowed him everywhere. That part happened fast. What took longer was the unraveling. Emails leaked. Old posts were dug up. Someone found a podcast clip where he joked about other people handling the boring money stuff. The clip aged badly. By evening, his agent dropped him. No announcement. Just a quiet unfollow and a website update. Mom showed up at my studio the next day. Not storming this time. No shouting. Just standing in the doorway like she wasn't sure she belonged there. "We need to talk," she said. I didn't stop working. "I don't," I replied. She looked around. Took in the new chairs. The book schedule on the wall. Come. They're blaming us, she said softly. Your father and I. People are saying things. I glanced up. Are they untrue? She didn't answer. Dad never came inside. He waited in the car. Cohen texted that night. Paragraphs. Then voice notes. Then silence. Then one last message at 2:03 a.m. You didn't have to destroy everything. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I blocked the number. The fallout kept spreading without me. Family friends stopped inviting my parents to events. A charity board asked Dad to step down temporarily. Mom's social circle thinned overnight. People who used to praise Cohen suddenly remembered concerns they'd always had. Funny how honesty shows up late. Through all of it, my studio stayed full. Clients didn't ask questions. They just hugged me a little longer, tipped a little more. One of them said quietly, "I'm glad you stood up." That was enough. I didn't issue statements. I didn't defend myself. I didn't correct a single headline. I let the truth sit where it landed. A year later, I signed the lease on a bigger space. High ceilings. Natural light. No back room, everything open, everything honest. On opening day, the line wrapped around the block. No family in sight. No apologies either. And I didn't miss them. The chaos faded slowly, like mist burning off a morning lake. 1 week became 1 month, 1 month became a year, and I stopped hearing about them entirely. The news, the whispers, the judgment, they all dissolved into background noise. And in that silence, my life started to grow louder in a better way. The studio I'd opened in the aftermath of the fallout was good. But it was just the beginning. High ceilings, sunlight streaming across the walls, polished concrete floors. It became a sanctuary. My calendar filled with clients from all over Vegas. People I'd never imagined would book me were calling weeks in advance. Dancers, models, influencers, but not the kind who cared about gossip. They cared about skill, about craft, about the art I was quietly perfecting while the world around me collapsed. Logan and Drew, my chosen family, were there every step of the way. Logan handled scheduling, client outreach, the business side I'd ignored for years. Drew managed supplies, inventory, and all the little details that could destroy a small studio if overlooked. Together we were a team. And more importantly, we were free. Free from judgment. Free from chaos. Free from the people who had never celebrated my existence. I remember walking into the studio one morning, coffee in hand, looking at the board filled with booked appointments and payments, and thinking, this is what I earned. This is what I deserve. The room hummed with energy, clients chatting, phones ringing, laughter from Logan in the corner. I'd never felt safer or more in control. Social media became a tool instead of a trap. I posted highlights, finished designs, studio milestones, snippets of behind the scenes. No shouting, no drama, just work, excellence, and authenticity. Followers grew. Fans grew. And somewhere along the way, my work got featured in a Vegas magazine. Then another. Then a national art blog. Each mention, each article, each small feature was a quiet victory over the past that had tried to define me. Money, surprisingly, became easy to handle once the emotional clutter vanished. I invested carefully, saving enough to move into a larger space and upgrade equipment without panic. I hired a small team, people I trusted, people who understood that success wasn't about ego. It was about craft, precision, and respect. Every dollar, every appointment, every client reinforced the truth. I was building a life for myself, not to prove anyone wrong, but to prove I could. There were moments of reflection, of course. Sometimes late at night, I would scroll past old messages from Mom or Cohen. Threats, guilt trips, manipulations, they didn't sting anymore. They were reminders of how far I'd come, proof that boundaries weren't just necessary, they were transformative. One particularly quiet evening, I poured myself a glass of wine and walked through the studio, looking at the walls lined with my art, the space buzzing with creative energy. Logan called from the corner, laughing at some client story. Drew was rolling a fresh canvas for a display. And I realized fully and finally, I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was thriving, had control, had power, had peace. And it wasn't built on revenge. It was built on skill, patience, and the courage to let go of people who never wanted to see me succeed. The glow-up wasn't flashy. It wasn't public. It was quiet. It was earned. It was mine. Then, as if on cue, a notification pinged. One last message. From an unknown number. Opened it. The words were familiar. Pleading, regretful, timid. A mix of apology and request. I read it twice. Then 3 times. And I did exactly what I'd learned to do over the past year. I didn't respond. I simply set the phone down, took a deep breath, and let the silence do its work. I looked around at the studio, at the life I'd built, at the community I'd created. All the chaos of the past, the family drama, the betrayals, the public humiliations, felt like someone else's story. Not mine. Mine was calm. Mine was bright. Mine was thriving. And in that moment, I realized something else. I had finally reclaimed my narrative. Completely. The message sat there on my phone, glowing softly like it was begging for attention. One name, one number I had memorized too well. Cohen. My brother. The architect of years of chaos, entitlement, and public humiliation. I stared at it, thumb hovering over the screen, feeling the old pull. The part of me that wanted to answer, to explain, to reason, to somehow fix what could never be fixed. But I didn't. I hadn't for months. Not since that moment when my boundaries became steel. Not since I built a life that was mine alone. Not since I realized that silence carried more weight than any argument, any apology, any tantrum could. The studio was quiet that evening. Logan had left hours ago, Drew was finishing the last client setup, and I was alone, walking through the space I had poured everything into. The walls glimmered with color and lines, every stroke a testament to the hours I'd spent perfecting my craft, every display a monument to my independence. I pressed my thumb against the screen one last time. The notification lingered for a heartbeat, then vanished into nothing. I didn't block him immediately. I didn't yell. I didn't reply. I simply set the phone down and let the silence speak louder than anything I could type. The door to the studio caught my eye. Sunlight filtered through it, casting golden lines across the floor. I flipped the lights brighter anyway, letting every corner of the room illuminate fully. No shadows, no hiding, just clarity. That was the point of all this. Not revenge, not confrontation, not even victory over them. It was reclamation. Every message ignored, every boundary respected, every decision made for myself instead of for their approval or envy was a brick in the foundation of the life I wanted. I realized that power wasn't loud. It didn't roar. It was quiet, steady, undeniable. I walked past the workstations, running my hand along the smooth surfaces, feeling the warmth of the studio that belonged to me, and only me. I could hear the soft hum of the equipment left on, the distant buzz of the city outside, and in that hum, I heard something I hadn't heard in years: peace. The phone buzzed again, but it was different this time. Not a message from him. Not a reminder of old wounds. It was a notification of a new client booking, an inquiry about collaboration, a comment on one of my posts praising my work. I smiled, letting the tension of a lifetime of family drama drain out of me. That's when it hit me. The people who mattered weren't the ones demanding my energy, the ones trying to shape my life for their convenience. The people who mattered were here. The ones who respected my craft, my time, my choices. The ones who built with me, not against me. I picked up the phone one last time, scrolled through notifications, and hit the block button on Cohen's number. The act was quiet, almost ceremonial, yet heavier than any argument we'd ever had. A door closed that would never open again. I leaned back, exhaled slowly, and let the silence settle around me. Not the emptiness of loss, but the calm of resolution. Every attempt at manipulation, every cruel word, every public slight faded behind me. Their chaos couldn't reach in here anymore. Not into this studio, not into my life, not into the peace I had earned. I looked around one last time at the studio, at the life I'd built from the ashes of their expectations. I realized then that closure wasn't a conversation. It wasn't a shout, a fight, or a confrontation. Closure was stillness. Closure was claiming your life. Closure was standing in your own light while leaving the shadows behind. I didn't reply. I didn't hesitate. I turned the lights brighter and called the next name.